Hey everybody, and welcome to Myopia Movies. This week we are covering a classic in honor of the impending holiday season. Of course, the holiday season, I mean Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit season. And so we decided to finish off our franchise by doing Return of the King. This is a big epic movie and a big epic podcast. And I appreciate you tuning in. I don't know what your Thanksgiving looks like, but I hope you get to spend it doing something that is at least relaxing and enjoyable. And if you're at work, I hope this adds a little bit of levity to what is probably a pretty busy and stressful day. Thanks everyone, and we appreciate doing what you do to keep us on the charts. Thanks.
Well, we've done it. Happy December. We are ending it the way December ended when I was in high school, with a Lord of the Rings movie. We've done the other two, so we're wrapping up with our third one. Welcome to Return of the King 2003. I'm your host, Nick Hoffman, Riffer on Cineprov, and they finally fucking killed Frodo. My co-hosts are...
Keiko.
Alex. Matthew W. Quinn.
Madison.
And I appreciate you coming out for what was a 3.5-hour movie. I always feel bad when I assign homework that's this long. At least this is probably the most awarded movie we've ever done. Winner of 11 Academy Awards, swept everything, but still no acting. I believe the only actor who was nominated from this was Fellowship of the Ring when Ian McKellen was nominated for Best Supporting. Should have won it, didn't win it. But we end here with 45 minutes of me openly sobbing. Because that's kind of how the end of the movie was to me. Because he marries little Miss Cotton, and he has all of his little hobbitses, and his real daughter's on set. Oh, and it's the most homoerotic film we've had since Top Gun, and it's amazing. So what do you think? Okay, actually, better question. How many of you watch this regularly, and how many have you not seen it since 2003 when it came out?
I watch it regularly.
No.
Pretty sure I have not seen it, but in bits and pieces since I saw it in the theaters 20 years ago.
I've watched it a couple of times, but not frequently.
I remember I own all three extended edition. I've watched all three of the extended editions at least once, but not in quite a while.
Yeah, see, for me, I went through my smug-ass movie phase where I was like, oh, these big movies, they're not real movies. I'm going to watch more haute couture. Oh, this film is in French? Fucking fantastic. And it's made by a Polish guy? Thinking of Danton here. So throughout college and stuff, I just couldn't be bothered with such simple... And I look back at this and I'm like, this is a fucking masterpiece. And so... this is 2023 as we were recording. 2020 was 2021 was when the first one came out. So 2021 was when they came out with this beautiful 4K 20th editions, and I watched the extended edition, all 75 hours of it, back to back to back. It took me 3 weeks, and I missed my family, but it was worth it. And rewatching this now, even I watched the theatrical this time, it's gorgeous. I'm sorry, these movies look so good.
So we're not making fun of this movie, right?
Oh, no, I will make fun of it constantly. My God. I don't know which is stronger, the romance between Sam and Frodo or Gollum and Frodo, but it's both intense. It's just different kind of love. It's like...
Fred Hobbit is, still my man.
Dude, did the Novocaine still kicked in, or what's going on? You're looking pretty good. Like, that was a good slurring. That was funny.
We're going to go on the Murray Povich show and fight about it, bitch.
Oh, God, help me. Hey, whiskey. So,
What are we talking about? Lord of the Rings?
if you
The
have
love
not,
triangle.
if you have not been
right.
following this, they had a fellowship. There was this ring. Turns out, guys, ring's pretty evil, and when you put it on, you go invisible and ruin a birthday party. But then, turns out, it's the most powerful thing in the universe, and it's been found by English people, and that's a problem, because a big German guy, he's going to take it, as is history, and his name is Sauron, and it's bad. At this point, we smash cut to Smeagol getting the ring. Like, we get kind of like a previously on
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
It's my birthday and I wants it.
The accent comes later. At first, it's just calm, mellow, like, let's go fishing, guys. Oh, this isn't at all a homoerotic scene. And they're just like grabbing on each other like, oh, we're going to get a fish. Hooray.
Would you want to see a little dude getting dragged by a bass?
And again, this is kind of, at least in the version I watched theatrical. Some of you watched extended. I watched extended a couple years back, like I said, so I wanted to compare them here. But even this, I'm like, this goes on for a bit. He's like, oh no, the fish has me. Whoa! Just like, spring break woo, guys. What's the actor who plays Smeagol?
Andy Serkis. And you see him. You see his actual face. He's a guy.
Dude, even back then, though, he looks just kind of sweaty and creepy. Yeah. Like, they make him real pale and real, like... speaking of previous movies, he looks Brad Dourif-y in this.
I was wondering if that actually was Brad Dourif.
That's a man who's going to get an Academy Award, an honorary Oscar, because he's incredibly important, but you're not going to give Smeagol an Academy Award because you'd be afraid he'd show up himself. Just...
In a mocap suit, just get on stage.
Or maybe he'll just shave himself bald and like wear a loincloth.
They like me. They really like me. I'm going to do this all podcast long.
I had a feeling. Okay. But this smashes us to where the last movie left off. I rubbed my face so hard when Matt made that voice, I lost the contact.
Yeah, the Gollum is leading them into the sort of shortcut around the Black Gate of Mordor, and at this point he's gone total villain again, and he's going to set them up for her. But they don't really say who her is quite yet.
She's literally a Black Widow.
A big one.
Yeah.
Like a grizzly bear Black Widow.
Which... This is one of the problems I have because these movies are designed to feed into each other. I could have sworn this happened in the previous movie, so I was very confused because I thought, well, whatever. So we have simultaneously we have the two plot lines going on. The Hobbit plot line, which, just to clarify here, they're trying to destroy the ring in Mount Doom. For those of you who've listened, you know this. If you've seen, everyone's seen this movie, right? Like, it's impossible someone missed this movie. Okay, so they're trying to get to, we're near the end, Mount Doom. And frankly, as far as screen time goes, the Hobbits don't get much in this. This is really the action movie. This is really the fighting movie.
Yeah.
And so he starts complaining that it's fucking heavy immediately. Frodo, like, just sucks
This
much.
is super, super emo Frodo. Like, he is such... a angry, pissed off teenager at this point, but I get it. It's because the ring is weighing on him, like literally and physically.
Doesn't it get?
Metaphorically.
I thought it got heavier, like the closer he got.
Yes,
so
I believe it also. Yeah, I do think it has a stronger pull the closer it gets to Mount Doom because I think as the ring itself senses that it's getting closer to its demise, it's able to influence him more.
As to quote Galadriel, the ring of power has a will of its own. I sound too manny when I do that.
You need to go up a little. Try again. Go up some more.
The ring of power has a will of its own. Now not just English. What's that? What?
You sound like an English granny.
This is great. Keep going.
Okay. Les knows.
My yeast is rising.
Think soft.
Oh, glad I got Frodo with the ring.
Is it that
are we gonna do the musical number? The bearer of the ring, the wearer. That's from the cartoon.
I'll take your word for it. It's been a long time. Okay. Now.
I appreciate where we open up with Merry and Pippin just chilling out,
smoking weed.
Merry and Pippin are
when I grow up, I want to be Pippin.
I found the ham. Would you like some ham? And he's just like,
smoked ham.
Like, he's just like, he's stoned out of his gourd. We found the good, and Gimli's like, you found some of that sticky stuff? And he's like, yeah, girl.
Yeah.
It's like, this movie is a lot of too much, and again, not in a bad way, but it's a lot of too much, but right here, it's just, they're just stoned hobbits, and Gimli's like, "Ugh."
Yeah,
You young rapscallions!
So they're sitting there stoned, waiting on the rest of the group to show up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're managing Isengard now." So and you know, this just has the feeling of walking up to like a Jack in the Box, and the two guys that are still there, like the 17-year-olds that are stoned, they're like, yeah, we're both the manager. They had that vibe.
Well, and then Mary like stumbles across the plot.
In the theatrical release, the director's cut, they kill Saruman first, then they find the plot.
Well, I was going to say that's not at all in the theatrical.
No,
that
it's not.
was
They just leave him up there in the tower.
Maybe they didn't fade out so many times at the end. They could have worked in the death of Saruman.
I mean, you have to pay actors again, though. No, I mean, this movie's long enough as it is. I appreciate. So when I watched the director's cut or the extended editions, whatever they're called, the one that didn't need it was the two towers.
Yeah.
The other two, I enjoyed them more. And so I will say, there's a few cuts that they made for the theatrical. I need it. And that's one of them. Especially since we get to see sweaty Brad Dourif actually, like, under the gun. Like, and no one is creepy in a way that we love Brad Dourif. We did a Graveyard Shift. He's beautiful in that. But he's just like... You're like, oh, you're evil. Like, you've never been a good guy. You poor bastard. Are you sweating? He's sweating right now. Like, and again, Brad Dourif, great character. Not good. Saruman needs to die, though.
Yeah, they're the Gandalf, Theoden, all the Rohirrim show up at Isengard, where the tree people have wrecked it, and Saruman and his little crony Wormtongue are on top of the tower, and Gandalf is interrogating him, and Theoden is must be feeling kingly because Grima, come down from there, be free of him, and Saruman is just not having it and starts slapping him around. So Wormtongue has finally had enough of this crap and just starts stabbing him. Then Saruman proceeds to swan dive off the top of Isengard. It gets impaled on a giant wheel and then rolls over into the water, which I think there's a scene in like one of the behind the scenes scenes where Christopher Lee is like impaled on this, and he's like, "This is awfully familiar." For those of you who don't know, he played Dracula a lot.
And then from there, that's when Pippin finds his magic 8-ball.
Yeah, the Palantir, the Seeing Stone.
Oh, right, he sees it under the water.
To which he does the Indiana Jones thing, like he kind of switches out the jug for the magic.
Oh, that's
eyeball.
later. That's later. That's later when he takes it from Gandalf.
Sorry, I apologize.
This is when Pippin first sees it in the water at Isengard, and then Gandalf immediately takes it away from him and wraps it up.
So I have a very important. We've been talking about the raw eroticism of some of these movies, but my question was going to be especially the ladies here, but who was the guy for like. When this came out, I remember
Frodo.
all the girls being obsessed with Orlando Bloom.
This is Frodo.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, Viggo Mortensen looking rugged. And then my wife last night brought up that she's like, but there's so many pretty boys in this one.
It was
and
Frodo.
Frodo is very pretty. And I'm just like, I don't know. I would not have picked that from Candace. But for me, it was Viggo. Viggo's is a spicy number. What about you, Madison?
I was a big fan of Boromir. Big fan. After that, I know it's going to be an unpopular opinion, but
an orc.
No, I'm really into the Witch King. But when I can't see his face, like when he's the blacked out face and the riding that crazy dragon. That whole thing works for me.
I get it. It's funny how like again this is like a movie where it's just like. If only there were women here, and they're just like these beefcakes, like because like there was a scene I remember particularly where it's like Orlando Bloom like the stars are veiled tonight, and then Viggo Mortensen comes up next to him, and it's just like the rugged jawline of just like. Like it's very like it's just these two pretty men like avoiding eye contact with each other.
So Madison, are you going the Maury Povich show and fight Eowyn?
No,
you killed my man.
No,
she is terrible.
I won't get into that, but I can say to answer your question originally. When I first saw this in 2003, or I guess when the series first started in 2001, Legolas was definitely the one. Like, yes, 100%. That was what I was into. Now it's what's up, Witch King? Hey.
Legolas is for girls.
I feel
women want.
I want absolute power that corrupts.
I liked Frodo, but I was crazy about Elijah Wood. So
well, I will say too, whoever casted this movie was big on eyes. Tarantino likes feet. They liked eyes because even Ian McKellen's eyes are just holy shit. Like you might have magical powers, my good sir. Like the way that and the elves, of course, are all like. we can't blink, it's magic.
The Ent had great eye, and I get that the Ent aren't obviously like they're not real actors and like prosthetics or anything, but I noticed this in this movie that even the Ent's eye, Treebeard's eyes were like they came to life in the movie. I don't know, they felt real.
Well, and like it's a character himself. The eyes in Elijah Wood, they get murky when the ring has more power, and then when he's purified, like we have a scene that's, you know, in film it's very like it's a baptism or a like when he's cleansed of the ring's power and he's on the rock with Sam, the eyes are like woof, they're vivid again, and you're just like his soul has been cleansed. Like it's I've never seen the metaphor of eyes as like these things, because they're so like blue and like virginal, like you're just like, what is happening?
Are the eyes wide shut too?
Like, why did you go there? What did you?
The only other time I see that is in the Star Wars trilogy when Anakin makes his transformation into Darth Vader, his eyes change. And
the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, and Ahsoka has it as well. In
the classically good films.
No, it was just funny because I thought you were going to be like, because Luke Skywalker looks longingly to be, you know, Anakin. Well, it's because you like the guys in the dark.
I
mean, Anakin,
what can I say? I got a thing for villains.
Well, and Anakin's also blonde, so you got the blonde and the concentrated.
Oh, that's not so much the thing.
It's not
for
the
me.
blonde for you.
No, it's the absolute power that corrupts.
Not the Anakin being the male version of you.
No.
Okay.
No.
I will say too, Ian McKellen, just in general, God, I love him. Just like this is while he's doing X-Men at the same time, right? Because and just in these three movies, especially the first one where he got nominated for the Academy Award, but he's a delight. And I'd say I want him in the movie more, but Peter Jackson uses him as the perfect amount of spice. He shows up, he solves the scene, and then he's gone because this is man's battle or whatever. It's great, and he once again steals this fucking show, and it's so good. When I teach film to kids, one of the scenes I show is the Balrog scene, because it's all him, it's all in his beautiful eyes, but like how he delivers these lines with the last breath as he falls. You mentioned Hammer movies earlier when we were talking about Dracula and stuff. Christopher Lee's another person. You hire him, you're gonna fucking get Chris Lee. Doesn't matter if it's a bad movie. This, of course, is a good movie, but again, you hire Ian McKellen, he's gonna show up and steal the fucking show.
Another thing that I think sets those two apart from a lot of other actors, even in this series, is that they also use a lot of their body.
Oh, yeah.
They use a lot of physical acting, not just with their delivery or their tone. And I think a lot of other characters, the juxtaposition of how a lot of them can be kind of rigid in their
Stiff,
movement,
yeah.
whereas these two amazing actors show that they got to where they were for a reason.
Well, and to your point, something that happens in all this for all the characters is that they grow. For the last three movies, if you told us from Aragorn's perspective, he's becoming the king, and he does at the end of this, and he keeps his Raider-ness too. He knows that he is not the greatest. It's important, but the hobbits grow the most. All of them, all four of them. And Gandalf has always been big. He's physically taller than them. He has his large swooping motions because magic in this world sucks the life out of other things so that you can have power. So he fills the scene. Merry and Pippin stand up straighter by the end of this. They end up in war. Frodo is a coward, but Sam becomes the hero in this movie.
Sam is the unsung hero of this movie forever. It really upsets me that everyone's always like, "Oh, Frodo saved the day." Like, I'm sorry, Sam carried his ass, literally, figuratively.
Now the thing I don't understand is what's going the fuck on with the elves. Because the elves are terrible in this. I know Gene Roddenberry read the book and was like, you know what Vulcans could be? Loser fucking elves. But like this thing here is like, oh, I must give up my immortality for my father sings for Aerosmith. And then the rest of it is just her moving in slow motion and looking fucking pale.
Yeah, the whole dying Arwen plot is kind of stupid. Like,
it was really oddly misplaced.
Yeah, I mean, she's the one who's going to throw down with 9 zombies in the first one, and then calls down a frickin' river on them, and now she's like,
which first Lord of the Rings did you see?
Fellowship of the Ring.
She saves them
she
from
threw down with zombies?
The Nazgul, all 9 of them.
Yeah.
You have to translate.
Hang on, I need a terminology check. What
The
does
ring wraith,
throwing
Yeah.
down?
She was the one who took Frodo to Rivendell.
Yeah, so Rivendell is wounded. He's stabbed through the shoulder, and they're about to get the ring. She shows up with, like, parts the water like she's fucking Moses, and wipes the Nazgul downstream, and then takes him to Rivendell.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this one, she's kind of There's you've given up your immortality, and then there's Arwen is dying.
Here's the thing that I think happened, and this is honest. There's 0 women in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Like, she's a character, and she might as well say, bah, and then she disappears from the movie.
It does not pass the Bechdel test.
No, it does not.
I don't think there are ever 2 women in the same scene.
There's not even 2 women in the movie.
Unless
No,
you
there
count.
are. There are 3 women in the
Unless
movie.
you
The
count.
very last scene.
There's
where he's
Elwyn
being-
and Arwen.
And there's Cate Blanchett's
And-
character.
because
Galadriel.
Galadriel.
Yeah.
as he's being crowned, he walks past the handmaiden who fell in love with him, and she shows up, and he like first bases it in front of her dad, which is the power move. But they're not in the same shot. They're in the same scene, not the same shot.
In the houses of healing, maybe, because they're nurses and stuff, but I don't think anyone actually talks.
Well, I mean, so my point was going to be, is it worth making her a full character? Because the problem is the books have no female characters, so they took the few that were there and expanded them. But my thought was, yes, you need female characters, but this feels like they're shoved in, and they don't matter.
Well,
the plots don't matter.
We are forgetting the most important female character in this whole movie, the giant spider.
I mean, she's dominant. She's powerful.
She's a strong female character. That's what I'm looking for in movies.
Yeah.
But the problem is when she uses her powers, a small man takes it away from her.
That's how it always goes.
It is. So, anyway, for those of you who know me elsewhere, I do a podcast called Required Reading, and we've done first The Hobbit, then Fellowship, and Two Towers, and of course, depending on when this comes out, we've done an episode on Return of the King. And with that, I'm talking about the biggest Tolkien nerd I know, and we're getting into the story, and he brought it up last time. The problem with the female characters, the book needs them. Putting them in this way doesn't actually help the plot. It makes them seem superfluous.
Well, Eowyn's plot matches up with the books pretty well, but Arwen, I think all she does is she sews the flag Aragorn has.
Yeah, it's a scene from The Patriot. Heath Ledger is a beautiful woman, just sewing the flag. Girl. Okay, so we should actually talk about anything that actually happens in this. I mean, I'm having fun.
Well,
but people demand editorial review.
All right. Well, Pippin, as usual, is messing with things he shouldn't. So he gets hold of the Palantir after the victory feast at Edoras, the Hall of the Rohirrim, and that clues Sauron in. So Gandalf has to take him to Minas Tirith, the capital of Gondor, where Denethor is being a dickhead.
I will also just add, because we're here, and this film looks fucking incredible. Him riding across these plains. I've never wanted to learn how to ride a fucking horse in my life. They're going to Minas Tirith, which is, it's only mortal, but it looks amazing. But to get there, he rides through the entirety of New Zealand. And we see so much of this. And it's a good way to show good versus evil. There's still good in the world, and it's still green, but we're approaching this blackness off in the distance as it's all consuming, as we're trying to escape. It's cool. What's going on at Minas Tirith?
All right, Denethor, the steward of Gondor, because Gondor has not had a king in a long time. They just have a lord who's awaiting the return of the king. And Denethor's the father of Boromir, and Boromir is dead, and Denethor's mind is broken.
And he forgets he has a second son because he's just a throwaway character to him.
He's just
what's the second son's name?
Faramir.
Faramir.
And Faramir's just like, please, Dad, please, I'm so sorry that my better brother died, but maybe I can go and make you proud. And he's like,
by doing a suicide charge.
Speaking of Star Wars, isn't he the dude in charge of the First Order?
Yes, Hux.
He's Hux. He's General Hux.
Oh, Gleason, right?
Yeah.
What's his name?
One of Brendan Gleeson's many progeny in Hollywood. But he's awesome in this. And he kind of looks like Boromir. They did a good cast. They did a good casting. Also, the dad who is the king, or the king regent, is from Fringe.
Yeah,
that
John
show.
Noble. I watched all of Fringe. Yeah, that's
No
where I know him
kidding!
from. Yeah. He's great. I love him. He's great.
And Pippin gives himself in service as a way to pay the debt for Boromir dying for them, which was the worst. I can just see on Gandalf's face where he's like, Pippin, please shut the fuck up. What are you doing?
He told Pippin, no, don't bring up Boromir. Don't bring up this. In fact, Peregrine Took, it's better if you don't speak at all.
Yeah.
Fool of a took.
And then meanwhile, Peregrine makes this speech by, the greatest man can be killed by one arrow, and he was felled by many. And cut to Denethor having a Nom flashback.
I will say, what's his name? John Noble?
John Noble, yeah.
John
yeah.
Noble, dude. Him eating those cherry tomatoes.
Gross. He's so gross in this.
I'm still waiting for Peter Jackson to personally apologize to me for having to watch that stupid friggin' tomato scene. I'm still mad about who bites into a cherry tomato like that? Nobody.
A crazy king regent who's left with just a redheaded son now, and he's pissed.
Clearly.
In the books, he's
of course.
he's a much better person. He's strong enough that Sauron can't corrupt him using the Palantir. He just shows him stuff that's not real, and he drives him to suicidal depression.
They definitely make him a weaker character and a greedy character.
In this one, he's just a bitch.
The Regent?
Yeah.
I will say, though, man, he gets the greatest death. He's like, oh, my son, oh, no, fire!
That is visually one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
It is, except Pippin keeps saying, he's not dead, he just needs some medicine. He's like, oh, my kid's dead, my line is done.
Everyone around him is just like, I guess we're going to burn him.
He needs some Tylenol.
He goes down like a Buddhist protest.
There was
he goes full Jonestown
The one in the back was funny because he's like
having all these dudes build a pyre for him while he's still
He
alive.
covers himself in some kind of
oil.
Some oil. Oh my
Some
God.
really greasy looking oil.
Yeah. KY.
Oh no.
John Noble got slathered with a bunch of stuff in this movie.
It was the good vintage. I'm going to burn myself alive with the best.
We'll have to cancel the rest of
the oil.
We finally have a use for that 52-gallon bottle of lube I bought on Amazon Prime Day.
It came with a pump. I thought it was a good deal.
Hey, cherry tomatoes. Oh. My God. But he goes up like a fucking Christmas tree and goes, oh no! And he falls forever. It just goes.
With the shot just panning out and you just see the
My thought was, nobody would make it that far on fire.
Well, he's wearing big, heavy robes.
He's got oil all over him, though. He's all oiled up.
Do you mean they would have died before?
Yeah, they would have died before they made it that far.
Oh, man, I just love the dudes who are like, I don't know, man, the Penguin's henchman who's just like, I guess he's gonna just burn his son. Because his son at the end is like twitching.
Yeah, they're like he's awake.
He's crazy. Like, he's delusional.
The point is, why are people going along with it?
Because he's like the boss, the king.
Who Gandalf just knocks unconscious.
I love that scene.
Denethor has gone totally nuts. He's telling the army to abandon their posts, and Gandalf just brains him with his staff.
Well, I mean, he does the same thing with the King of the Knights of Rohan that's being affected by
Sauron.
Yeah.
But I do like Gandalf being like, now I'm Gandalf the White, brain someone with a stick. Like,
it's very Rafiki of him.
It is. I mean, because what I will say is, Harry Potter, they use magic a lot. This is very modest. It's just him like, I have a stick, I could use magic, not gonna do it. He's just a big, kind of scary dude with a stick and a beard, which, awesome.
Maybe he was just following some wise sage advice of speak softly and carry a big stick.
But he's just, we get into, because even during the battle, he has like his staff in one hand, a sword in the other, and he's just riding in like, poke, stab.
Yeah, he's doing some like Matrix stuff, killing orcs when they bring the siege towers up.
And when he shows up on Merry and Pippin smoking that sweet,
pipe weed,
Hobbit pipe weed, he's almost pissed off. He's like, I could have done that with magic, but the Ents showed up. Like, it's like, whatever.
To quote Christopher Lee, it's the halfling's leaf. And Merry and Pippin smoked it all. What's that word? Bogart?
They did.
Yeah, Bogart and his hobbits.
They just bogarted a god.
I love you using like.
What does that mean?
Weed. He's using weed like conversation from like a 1980s PSA. Like, hey there, fellow stoners. Would you like to bogart some of that weed?
Keiko, I think it means you steal someone else's weed.
I
No,
thought
it
you
means
were
you're hogging
saying
it.
this was
Bogarting my stash.
Yeah, man, you're using too much. Like,
They-
you're
they-
supposed to puff, pass. You're not supposed to...
Pass
They
the Dutchie.
they smoked all of Saruman's stash.
Dude, in front of him, too, man. That's not even fair. He's smelling it. Oh, those hobbits are using it. Oh, it was
My-
good stuff.
My
sticky
weed.
icky.
The halflings have smoked all my weed.
There you go, Matt.
Well, Christopher Lee is not having this.
I'm very upset.
I thought Bogart was like current in like new slang.
You can still use it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I
It's
mean,
it's still in circulation, I think.
but now if somebody offers me a doobie, I know they're a cop, though.
They didn't tell you they told you they're a cop by calling it a doobie. Yeah. So they did tell you they're a cop. They gotta tell you they're a cop, right?
Fun fact, they don't have to. You can ask them if they're a cop, and they can still lie to you. They don't have to tell you.
Yeah, so, meanwhile, the Rohirrim, the horse people, are gathering to relieve Gondor. So, for the history nerds out there, this is the Ottoman siege of Vienna, and the Rohirrim are the Poles.
Well, it was frustrating.
I'm
'cause
sure
it-
many people out there listening are like, yes, that.
The real, some of them really. Yeah. By the way, check out the Sabaton song "Winged Hussars."
I think it was interesting that when they were first saying, like, listen, hey, we got to go help Gondor. We got to help them out. And why? They didn't come to us, so I don't know.
Why not?
I don't care. Like, twist my arm. I'm sorry, it's just the fate of the entire world. But sure, let's not.
Yeah, you think that would be like the first thing you would say when asking for help, but
Just think if we'd had that same approach in World War II, we'd all be speaking German.
The saying.
We're in my
Meanwhile,
basement. What about
meanwhile, they're gathering the army of the Rohirrim
Same.
to relieve Gondor.
The
Because-
beacons are lit.
oh, that's
Gondor
right. So
needs aid.
now they're gathering peoples.
Yeah, because Denethor, in his suicidal stupidity, refuses to light the beacon, so Gandalf and Pippin pull a fast one and light the beacons anyway.
Well,
So we have a mountain after mountain of beacons lighting.
I will say there's something interesting that's going on in my head. The first movie is explaining the mythology. The second movie is explaining why it's a problem. The third one is explaining why people are suck. And to me, this is the most interesting, right? We are talking about a time period wherein Tolkien refuses to acknowledge that this has any historical precedent, whatever. He is a Beowulf scholar, and he's talking about ancient times. But this is, to me, very much like, say, the Americans in World War One. They need help. You can help us. Why don't you want to help us? Don't you believe in what we believe in? And he's like, I can't possibly. So what do? They appeal to the people. He knows when he lights the damn torches, and it's an incredible shot. And, you know, even in my theatrical version, it goes on for 4 minutes. They need help, they need help, they need help. And the people are like, fuck it, we're already in armor yesterday, right? And even though the king doesn't care, because the problem is, what is interesting is we have this disconnect between who's in charge and who wants to fight, and he's losing his goddamn mind because his oldest son has died, right? It's important. His heir, his successor has died. And we're supposed to believe there's another successor coming in a thinly veiled biblical metaphor.
Yeah,
right?
he's also a little kind of bit twitchy about Aragorn. You know, he's like, in your left hand you would use me as a shield against Mordor, and in your right you would replace me with this bereft house of nobility, blah, 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 blah,
Well,
blah.
and that's the point. Are we afraid to fight because we're afraid we're going to lose who we are, or that we will be replaced? What is the noble cause? This is, I think, where his writing is the best. And Peter Jackson doesn't hide the fact that even the men who are going to save the world can be corrupt and can be shallow and can be awful. And that's why the hobbits have to be small, because sometimes great things happen from small people. I think this is the point where the movie is the best. Like truly. And the fact is, Gollum is such a small threat compared to the army of these goblin things with their swords, and they're evil, and yet it doesn't matter because he is just as much of a threat to those two men as any army that Aragorn's going to fight.
I think that goes into the topic of circle of influence.
Yep.
I mean, Smeagol's is the imminent threat to them, and the more he gaslights Frodo to get away from Sam, like, and I am purposefully using this TikTok psychiatry verbiage because I know that everybody nowadays is like, I heard that once on a TikTok, so that's what I've got. But Smeagol, the amount of bullshit that this creature just weaves is incredible, and I think that there's a lot there that you could unpack about the way people have personal relationships with other people, the way something like religion can corrupt certain people. I mean, absolute power corrupts, and I just think it's a really interesting way to see how that happens between him and Frodo. And then I also appreciate that Sam's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna let you do your thing, Mr. Frodo, but I'm just gonna keep like following you, and I'm gonna be here when you need me.
And maybe just kiss him a little
and just a little forehead smooch.
I'm just really glad that other people are talking about that, because like my friends when I was in high school and we all like that was our thing, is that we thought that there was a romantic connection between Sam and Frodo, and that like especially in the very last scene when they're like right next to each other. Like, I mean, I think I remember drawing a picture, like a comic style picture of them like actually kissing, because that was like the running joke, is that they just needed to kiss.
Is it on Tumblr somewhere?
I don't know. Probably not that.
Well, I mean, it reminds me of those people making jokes about like the tired jokes about Brokeback Mountain. Like, it's the nadir of humor, but it's the idea of being like, there's no one else, and thank God you're here for me. Like, it's, you know, it's that like quote unquote trench romance. It's not actually romantic in a way. It's compassionate. It's supportive, and that's what it is. Like, Frodo is doing something incredible, and someone's helping him. If you told me that what's his name, Nolan was inspired when he made 1917 or whatever, or whoever made Sam Mendes did it. You're like, yeah, it's two people who are going to do whatever it takes together to make it work. Like, and again, you don't have to make a homophobic comment about Brokeback Mountain.
No. I mean,
they're in literal hell. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you've got no one else except for Gollum, and what else are you going to do but just hold the other person close?
It's a war bonding. I mean, I feel like soldiers could definitely say that they have the same experience, and you build this kinship, this brotherhood that no one will ever understand. And while there will be other chapters of your life that this person will not be necessarily like front and center on, you're never going to be able to replace this time. Like, nobody can ever take this connection away from them.
Which is why I think the ending is so good, where Frodo literally has PTSD.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie. Sam has the more Jeremy Renner ending.
Sam prayed the gay away and married a lady and had a bunch of Hoppity kids.
I'm going to go see if it still works, Mr. Frodo. And he's like, what's her name? Something Cotton.
Rosie Cotton.
Rosie Cotton gave me that feeling the one time.
Well, there in the first movie, Sam is getting real territorial about one of the himbo hobbits, either Merry or Pippin, dancing with her at the bar.
Himbo hobbits. Oh.
Dancing with her at the tavern. So that was there from the beginning.
I mean,
Another love triangle.
I mean, some dudes leave for war, and they've got their sweetheart at home, and then things happen, and then you go back home, and you go back to your regular life.
well, and I also think it was a thing where everyone knew Sam was into her, but like, he wasn't going to say anything, and she just wanted to dance. Like, nothing is worse than you're just like, I'm the one woman here without a hobbit to dance with. And so Mary was like, God damn it, if you're not going to dance, at least don't leave her alone. I mean, sure, he goosed her and grabbed her ass, but like, you know, I mean, she is Rosie Cotton, so I mean, come on, girl. So, like, at any point we can pick up this movie, because again, I assume the planet has seen this. And it's also 3.5 hours. The short version is 3.5.
Yeah. So
a topic I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
the Rohirrim are gathering, and they're going to ride to leave Gondor, and you know, Éowyn and Merry want to go fight, and Éomer and Theoden are not having this.
I also think it's interesting how we brought in this army of the undead that were not allowed to be at rest until they finally fulfilled their pledge to the King of Gondor.
Yeah. So
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Also, just to throw it out there, if someone is in cinematography and knows, I don't know if they updated the original effects, but one way or another, the movie looks remarkable. And the fact that we have ghosts for 20 minutes that don't look shitty is incredible. Okay, and as we for those of you who don't know, there was a previous War of the Ring, and a lot of people shit the bed. And so part of it was, if you help me fight as the king, I will absolve you of your sins. There's this kind of very Catholic imagery, this absolution thing, but like, it's just remarkable. And we should mention at this point too, when Frodo shows up to the Witch King, he ends up in the Emerald Village of the Wizard of Oz, and these greens in this section.
Oh, the Army of the Dead, or the City of the Dead.
Yeah, it looks incredible. Like, these things look, because so much of this world is very earth tones and drab, and so to have this vivid imagery, Peter Jackson is fucking so good at this. Along with the body horror, which he does a lot of, there's these great shots where you have this contrast between like these pre-industrial people and the horrors of industrialization, these tall metal buildings with these glowing lights. Cool. It's cool. I love this stuff.
If this movie wasn't so good, it would at least be a beautiful movie. But it is a beautiful movie, and it's so good.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite series to watch, and I'm still mad that in high school I was the Harry Potter kid over the Lord of the Rings kid, and I'll forever atone for that.
I was Lord of the Rings, although I was worse. I was the X-Men kid. I was like, oh boy! I mean, but in the same way, like when my friends were learning like Star Wars was fine. I was an Indiana Jones boy.
Oh yeah, same here. Indiana Jones and Star Wars were always going to be big too.
So my wife bought me a Stetson, and I look like a man, and I'm very happy. I'm very rugged now. Like, I'm 20% more rugged.
So now you just need a whip, and
the whip's for other times.
Candace, are you going to start writing things on your eyelids?
And by the way, if any of you have seen the animated version of this, there's a whole song where there's a whip.
There's a
There's
way.
a way.
That is burned into my head from the cartoon.
We don't want to go to war today.
We're sponsored by Insurrections this week. We'd like to remind you that whips, they're for consent. So at this point, John Noble is very upset, and they're firing cannonballs at his house. And this is where we get the greatest scene in the movie, where his son is wounded because he sends him to die, which is something we haven't talked enough about. But he sends his son to die on the back of a horse, launching into an army, which is really something.
Because the orcs have crossed the river and seized the outer defenses. And Denethor's like, we should not have given them up so easily. Yeah, you're outnumbered at least 20-1.
Yeah. And when our homeboy gets wounded, when Hux gets wounded, the dad's like, oh, my son, better burn the corpse for evidence.
And Pippin just keeps shouting, he just needs medicine, he's alive.
I can't mimic Pippin.
Keep trying, it's getting worse. Oh, Mr. Frodo! Oh, he's dead.
Denethor has lost his mind. He's burning Faramir alive.
I was just, all I kept thinking was, I'm not dead yet.
You know, he's probably okay. I don't know what's wrong with him.
Is that Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm a little hobbit. I'm actually 5'2".
I'm gonna punch the Witch King in the face.
These are getting better. These really
It'd
are.
be like my fourth movie.
I think an ice cube just went into my sinus. That was something.
It'd be that fourth movie where I fight the Russians.
Oh my god, it's getting worse. He's from Kentucky.
It got weirdly southern.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, the CGI is attacking the tower, and they're throwing rocks at people.
Those are big hunks.
Oh no! Was it? No, they were launching the heads.
It was heads.
It was,
Oh,
it was the
that was
decapitated
one,
heads in their.
'Cause he said
in
release
their,
the prisoners.
armor.
That's
Yeah.
disconcerting.
They still had their helmets on.
Psychological
Again,
warfare.
This got away with PG-13. That's something.
That's because there's no cursing and there's no sex.
Yes, but there are heads. You usually can't do that to humans.
I guess.
Okay.
Being PG-13, yeah, you see all the heads. I guess there's just not as much gore, right? There's not as much
Orcs
red,
bleed black.
I
not
bet
as much,
you that there is an
viscera,
actual written guideline on.
Yeah, there's gotta be.
And then there's another guy that
just-
says, if Peter
like-
Jackson gives you a truckload of money,
Well, if you see...
A head is okay, but not.
Well, for example...
They weren't messy heads. You know, they were
as
just-
we were talking, which
Very
is
tidy.
a month ago from when you hear this, the current Eras Tour movie is out. It's doing great.
It was incredible.
I want to see it. It uses the word fuck 4 times, and it is PG-13 because they took a truckload of money. Because the MPAA does not publish its result, and every member is secret. There's a great documentary you should see. I believe it's called "This Film Is Not Yet Rated," and they talk about that. Kevin Smith was indie. That's why some of his first movies are when it would be PG-13 if it was a Disney film, and they get into that. So this movie, the fact that it has just severed heads bleeding out on the ground would have been taken away because it's a human. If it's a monster, you can do that. But when it's
I think it's when if it's red blood,
it hits.
It's a bigger thing.
In my version, it hits the thing and there's blood, but whatever.
So if you could have one quote in this movie where we just interjected a good fuck, where would it be?
Friends fucking die together.
I like that. That would work.
I
Gimli would.
I think
never
I
thought I'd die
misinterpreted
side
how
by
you
side
said
with a
that.
fucking elf.
I never thought I would die with
Friends
an elf.
fuck and die together. Yeah, that's where you were going.
First,
That's a weird quote.
I was thinking when we go back to like emo, like starting to turn Frodo when they're arguing about what happened to the last of the bread, and he's trying to defend Smeagol and saying he doesn't even eat bread. I could just see him saying he doesn't even fucking eat bread. And
No, I want Pippin to go, he fucking did it. Right before all of Mount Doom vaporizes. Like it's the end of Volcano or something. And it's just like, well, boom! He's like, hey, fucking did it! And then the world ends, and then he's like, ah! And then and then it's like the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. He goes, ah! And he points.
I am no fucking man. And then the Witch King's like, okay, you're getting into semantics. That's not what I meant. But
Or when Frodo first wakes up and he's like eye checking on Gandalf, and Gandalf just goes, fuck. And they're smiling at each other. That'd be a good one.
It seemed like it's Éowyn. Éowyn.
Éowyn is the blonde girl who
Right.
Aragorn friend zones.
That was very kind of
He
Shakespearean, like no man, woman born, like a technicality.
That's the point.
Like,
he was
exactly.
riffing, he was riffing on Burnham Wood Come to Dunsinane in Two
Beowulf.
Towers,
yeah.
and then now No Living Man May Hinder Me.
That's right. I was born via C-section. Right? Yeah. That's what it is. Like no man,
woman,
was
no
from
man,
his
woman
mother's
born.
room
Well,
untimely
she's dead.
ripped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. See, I made a reference to Shakespeare.
So
Fucking
is that the secret word for today's episode? Woo! Shakespeare!
the safe word for today's episode.
It's tomato.
Shakespeare.
Yeah. So
Tomato Shakespeare. My
yeah. So.
nemesis.
Meanwhile, Aragorn is going to gather the army of the dead and make them fulfill their oath, and the Rohirrim ride for Gondor with Éowyn and Merry going along they're not supposed to. And at one point, you see Éowyn hanging around in the army with her mask off. So does no one notice there's a woman?
Although I will say, my wife's favorite fact about this was there weren't enough male horseback riders in New Orleans, in New Zealand at the time.
So they used a bunch of women.
Yeah, and that's why some of them look like the women from like The Life of Brian when they're about to go stone the guy. They're just like the beards are super wispy. They're like, yes, we're gonna fight for the ring. Like it's phenomenal, and that's what it is. So they all like. Maybe they just have soft cheekbones for Gondor.
They contour for Gondor.
I feel like the more we say it,
And they're just used to seeing like very feminine
Svelte.
features. Yes.
Oh, maybe this is where the idea of jockeys came from. Very small people. If only the hobbits could lose some more weight, they could have been great jockeys.
Oh no, the thing is
seem a
happening
little
in Scandinavia, and they're all very soft pink women with the pink hair. They're blonde, they're very blonde. I'm not helping anything. All this is
Erg.
I think he was doing
that
a
was a
Swedish
slur
chef.
right there.
I think he was trying to do a Swedish chef.
Meanwhile, as we're
Bless
speaking,
you.
the elves are trying to get the fuck out of town, I guess.
The elves are leaving Middle Earth, and
Yeah, they're like, we're out. We're taking the last ship. Deuces.
and Elrond was not really on board with his daughter losing her immortality and marrying a man, so he kind of hustles her out.
Mr. Hubbard's right. In the meantime, I will say that Well, like, there's essentially three things happening simultaneously. We've got Frodo about to be eaten by the spider lady. We have the ghost people attacking. And what you're talking about is attacking all at once. The problem is, my version is a paltry 3 hours. Yours is 4.5. And so...
No, the theatrical was 3.5 hours, so we're only missing an hour of context.
Thank God.
That could just be all just characters looking at each other silently.
Some of the characters looking at each other are actually important to the plot. Like when Aragorn is crowned, Faramir and Eowyn are making eyes at each other. I
definitely thought it was implied that like she was like, well, he swerved me, so I guess I'll be with Faramir.
There's the whole Houses of Healing scene where they're all hanging out, being wounded and angsty.
If you're choosing Faramir versus Aragorn,
he's no Boromir.
Which one's first and which one's second?
I wonder if Boromir would have required as much oil to set on fire.
By the way, I don't understand.
Boromir would have needed much less oil than you, Faramir.
Exactly. There we go. That's what I was waiting for.
My son was always a greasy bastard.
I'd set myself on fire for you, Dad. Show me.
Show me. John Doe was so good in this. Yeah, I lost what I was going to say. But Frodo is about to get stung.
He gets stabbed in the back, and it kind of paralyzes him. I think because he starts foam from the mouth, and then the spider grabs him and starts wrapping him up.
The spider has a stinger, which is weird.
And then she wraps him up, gonna eat him, and then Sam shows up, and in a very awkward scene, he saves the day, but some of the goblins show up and they take him away, right?
As they say, he's still alive.
Which Sam goes, "Oh, Sam, you're so stupid. You're gonna lose another one." And
fortunately, Sam is saved by an orcish race riot,
which he kind of. Anyway, whatever. I don't want to say it's bad, but the middle gets confusing and kind of soggy, and that's where I start losing the lines because so much stuff happens. I mean, I'll be honest. I have 2 beautiful and loud children. And so it took me 3 days to watch this movie. And by the end of each night, I was like...
There are 2 different approaches you can take, though.
Why is this night not like any other nights? Well, because the Siege of Gondor.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, that didn't...
Keiko, what were you saying as far as...
So I was going to say, you could have Nick's approach, which is... break the movie up, watch an hour one night, watch an hour another night, watch an hour another night. Or you could take my approach where I crammed the movie and watched it all today, and I fast forwarded through all of the battles, most of those, and some of the... there was a lot of scenes of panning over landscapes and people staring longingly at each other without talking. So I just fast forwarded through all of that. And I think I finished it in 3 hours.
Oh man, but what's the best part? What if I went to Longhorn Steakhouse but skipped over the steak and focused instead on the wedge salad that expired last week?
That's why you get the Caesar, because the Caesar salad is clearly their better salad.
I love a good wedge.
The battles to me are the most incredible part.
They're incredible.
They have the scene where they're at Minas Tirith. And they have the giant ram that's shaped like
the wolf,
a dragon.
What do they call it?
Wolf's head.
Yes, the wolf's head.
Which has
amazing.
Which has its own name. It's for those of you who are watching Ahsoka, when they all are all chanting Thrawn's name, all the orcs are chanting Grond, Grond, Grond.
They're stoked about it.
There is some CGI here, but so much of it's practical. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I've watched some of the documentaries and the extended editions. These miniatures were, they called them bigatures. Minas Tirith is as tall as a person.
Well, and you can tell that dragon head is as big as a sex toy or something. It's huge as it swings through the scene.
I believe
they're just going to screw the city right there with that.
I believe Matt's article about the extended edition and these additional features talks specifically about the Grand and the level of detail that goes into that bigature.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I reviewed the extended edition DVD for the UGA newspaper, The Red and Black, back in 2005. Wow.
Pause for effect.
18 years ago.
But who's counting?
I am.
I'm also really impressed that Legolas was able to take out this giant elephant with a single arrow to the head.
I was kind of sad about all the elephant things.
Like how
They there was some elephant acupuncture going on.
Yeah,
they were hurting.
it was all
That
over
wasn't fair.
it was all over its rear hide, which
I'm
was
glad
sad to
that
see.
the
But then just
one
one arrow to
elephant-
the head just took it out.
Yeah,
And-
for those of you who aren't aware of this, the horsemen arrive and break the orc army, but as they retreat, Sauron or whoever's in charge of the army at this point brings up the Oliphants, like the Haradrim, the or vaguely Arabian Middle Eastern people who worship Sauron, show up with these like 4-tusked elephants the size of the Chrysler Building.
They're gigantic.
With 20 or 30 archers on each one, being steered by the dude with the biggest biceps on Earth.
And another thing, I also noticed when they're rolling their effigies toward Gondor, which are clearly some kind of like Trojan horse thing.
Siege towers?
Yeah, the siege towers. I just think if you were pushing that, wouldn't you want everybody off of the siege tower while pushing it? Because I was watching the scene. There's people just like 4 deep on each level of the siege tower, and I'm thinking if I'm down on the ground pushing, I'd be like, can you fucks get off here and help me? Jesus.
It's not like...
You don't sit in the car while I'm trying to push it forward.
No one is giving Sauron
ended up getting
the world's
defeated?
best boss coffee mug.
He is not the world's best boss. He does seem like a micromanager. He's always watching.
I'm looking at Madison now, the great eye, lidless.
I did like that when the towers. We're jumping forward, but when Sauron falls, when the eye is falling, you can see the eye like looking around, like what's happening, and it sees the ground. It's like, oh shit, and then just disappears. Like,
yeah, he's like
frantic.
It was not sure if it was supposed to be comedic, but I found it to be. It's a weird time for comedy.
Well,
But-
speaking of comedic nonsense, by the end of this movie, when I watched it, I was just like, the fuck was the eye doing for the entire previous 1,000 years when they were looking for the ring?
It had something in it, so it was like trying to get that one eyelash out, and it takes forever to get the eye makeup back right again.
All those orcs had to make a contact the size of the table for it.
They just had it in a closet the whole time. It was
So every year when he has to go for his optometry appointment, does it keep getting updated, the prescription? So like it takes him a year to make the new contact lens, and
a
then
big
by then he needs a
contact.
new one.
Cheap orc labor.
God, it's the
1-800 contacts.
worst. That's why I support Elf Aptra, as it's trying to negotiate a contract with the all-seeing eye of Sauron. But no, it's ridiculous. It's because it really does feel like, holy shit, what's happening? Yeah. And it's like looking around, it's like, my God, elves.
Is that the ground getting closer?
Well, because eventually,
Or am I
That's
getting
the
shorter?
whole point of the strategy for the end of the movie is that
yeah, I was gonna
Aragorn
say, just get there.
Aragorn leads the armies of the West, which are very
What about the
depleted.
dead? We didn't really talk about all the dead.
The dead in the movie were so overblown. They kill off most of the army at Minas Tirith. In the books, all they did was scare the pirates, one of whom was Peter Jackson,
Yes.
off their ships so that
was the
Aragorn
fat
and his
pirate.
buddies can take control of the ships and sail them to Minas Tirith. You know, they even make jokes about it, like Gimli is like, they're good lads having a fight, and Aragorn is like, I hold your oaths fulfilled. They dismiss the army of the dead and they all fade out. But the whole point was they're going to distract Sauron, like literally, the eye will be watching the Black Gate, not the path to the mountain.
That
Because
scene,
it is literally a giant eyeball on top of the tower.
that scene where Gimli's saying like, "Hey, I think we should keep these guys around. They were pretty helpful." Just goes ahead and reinforces for me that Gimli is definitely chaotic neutral.
He's chaotic evil.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
also talking about my dog now.
Oh, yes,
No,
that Gimli. Yes.
First of all, Gimli is the guy who showed up at the D&D campaign and thought it would only take a couple hours, 4 hours, and he's like, fuck, where are the eagles? Like, he's just like, he wants it to end so bad. He's like, those guys would have helped us beat the rest of the armies, God, fuck. I thought I'd be out of here by 10. Like,
That's every D&D night.
so clear. that
There's
he's
always
like-
one guy that's like, please.
Well, it's Jonathan Rhys-Davies. So he had opinions about the Muslims going on too, and they're just like, Gimli, can you get out of here? We know you're a bad person.
I like Gimli's quote near the end. I guess it was like their final, when they were going to try to draw the eye away. And he's like, very low chance of success. more than likely going to our death. When do we leave? Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
I mean, he saw Han Solo give a speech before, but I do like the idea that he's like, I mean, and I've referenced it before, but they've become friends, and he's like, I never thought I'd die next to an elf.
How about
He's
side by
like-
side with a friend?
Yes, I could do that.
I've done a side by side before. But I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, and Orlando Bloom looks down without blinking, like, and and Gimli looks up at him like a teddy bear, like he's an Ewok, and
While breathing heavily for no reason.
The thickest, angriest Ewok ever born.
I mean, and again, like,
Ewok.
from the point of the review, I mean, Keiko's right. It's hard to talk about these battles other than to say that they're magnificent. And there are special effects, and especially when the goddamn dragons show up. God, I watched a fair amount of Game of Thrones. I didn't watch it all because I have disappointments. But
Well, you didn't get disappointed by the terrible ending, so consider yourself lucky.
I'm like the only person that likes the way Game of Thrones ended.
I didn't get that far. I didn't get past the first few seasons, but I will say, these dragons look incredible. Like, they look different. Every dragon looks different. Like, they have a distinction. This one looks more like an electric eel or something. It's very
You're
sleek.
talking about the
The
ring
Night,
wraiths.
the King Witches.
Yeah. Actually, it looks
Oh, the Witch Kings.
like
yeah.
Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, he's been-
like,
yeah.
it's got the long, smooth neck. It floats around.
Leopleurodons.
Someone asked Tolkien if they were pterodactyls, and he's kind of like, huh, yeah. Because he wasn't up on the dinosaurs, I suppose. But
They
the
hadn't
bo-
been out long enough, I
But
guess.
the books kind of comment these were something from an older age that Sauron kept around.
Well, but that's
So,
what
yeah.
it feels like. Everything feels out of sync with each other, which is kind of neat. Like, a lot of the armor looks very Beowulfian, like, Celtic. In fact, what's her name? The blonde one.
Eowyn.
Eowyn.
Looks like she's wearing something out of a Celtic mythology. Like, the way her mask lies looks like something from, like, the proto era. Like,
It reminds me of the Sutton Hoo ship burial.
Right.
It'll be over by now, but there's a panel at the Conjuration Con in November called Post-Apocalyptic Fantasy. That Lord of the Rings is post-apocalyptic, the fall of Numenor.
Yeah.
These are the colonists. It's like if Britain blew up and the United States, and what would become the United States is all that was left.
And this is, as they say at the end, the beginning of a new age, which is
The Age of Man.
Thank you, Ringo. The Age of Man. But I do like this idea. People I know are Masons. It's the idea that there's a new civilization that replaces an old civilization, right? The idea that the world can be destroyed, but only a civilization is truly destroyed, that we will always persist, that man will come back again. And that's what this is. It's, in some ways, it's optimistic that the smallest person can overcome incredible evil if they believe they can. Or what actually happens at the end of this, if you're forced to end evil, because that's...
If you give in at the very last possible second, but your uncle didn't kill the crackhead, and so the crackhead ends up totally accidentally saving the world.
There is a very strange Aqua Teen Hunger Force version of Lord of the Rings that you're describing that I would watch, where it's just some crazy
Who does
guy.
Karl play? Who's Karl playing?
Karl's playing... He's Gandalf, isn't he?
Because in the first
I was
movie,
picturing Frylock, but
I could do magic right now, but I've chosen not to.
because in the first movie, Frodo was like, "I pity Bilbo didn't kill him," and Gandalf was like, "It was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand," and then he says, "The pity of Bilbo will rule the fates of many." Because if Gollum hadn't gone full crackhead there at the end, Sauron would have gotten the ring back, and everyone would be dead.
Well, I will say, you keep saying crackhead, which is...
Meth head. I mean, he's clearly an addict.
I will say, though, but that's the thing about power. These are small people that suddenly get a lot of power. I mean, you're right. They're depicting it as though he's addicted by drugs. I think it's interesting, the idea that all he wants is to feel important. The idea that a small person feels important is the most dangerous thing of all is truly interesting. And... how big philosophically should I get?
Well, the Napoleon movie should be out by now.
I was just about to bring up Napoleon.
Well, but it's very American to say it's more important to work for the individual than the good of all. Right? It's the utilitarian versus the individual. In America, we're taught that one person is more important than the whole. And I get the feeling that Tolkien was very cynical on the Americans, because he definitely was. And the idea that you suddenly have this incredible thing that's powerful, like, say, an atomic bomb, and then you feel like you deserve to rule the world, even though that is an addiction that will destroy you. I mean, it's hypocritical coming from a fucking Englishman, but I could totally see that interpretation of what's going on here, that he's willing to destroy himself to control the power which no one should possess, is kind of an amazing way to end this whole thing.
Oh, I like looking at it from that way.
Oh, that felt good. Also, some beautiful people fall in love. Luckily, the ginger falls in love with the blonde.
That's storybook. That's a storybook ending.
And the new king of man and his elf queen are chewing each other's faces off in front of her dad.
Her dad, who's like, "Oh, Mr. Anderson."
He looks really excited about it, though. I've never seen a dad more excited to watch his daughter just get plowed in front of everybody. Like, he's just like, "Yep, that's my girl."
At least I learned that from your old man.
At least it wasn't Steven Tyler.
He would just be screaming.
Stay awake just to hear you breathe.
There aren't enough accessories in Middle Earth for Steven Tyler to have showed up in this movie.
I'm an elf.
Maybe he provided the screech for all the ring wraiths.
Don't worry, Peter. I got a song. You know, when Orlando Bloom shows up, I can sing "Dude Looks Like a Lady." Oh, Dad, you're ruining another production. You're not English. Stop talking like that.
Dad, this is my wedding.
Oh, Christ.
The scene that still gets me and will always get me every time I watch this movie,
Mr. Sam, I'll carry you.
is when Aragorn has just this deep look in his eyes as he's looking at the four hobbits and says, "You bow to no one." It gets
cried.
me. Yeah, every time. It doesn't matter how many times I see that scene. It just kills me every time. And the look of just what, like the hobbits are just, even after everything they've done, they're still so humble and, oh, really, us? Oh, and,
I'm sort
sweet.
of the opinion that a lot of the sort of moist-eyed, longing looks were maybe a few minutes too much. I don't know if the extended version had it even a little more.
Well, they have to be at minimum minutes long, but then, you don't want to have too many.
I didn't
minutes.
have much
But
of
that
a
was a
problem
great
with the
line.
moist-eyed looks. It was just at the end they kept fading out repeatedly.
This movie takes commercials break.
A lot of fake outs.
I mean, if they cut some of those fade outs, it could have kept the death of Saruman and the Eowyn Faramir stuff in the theatrical release.
I mean, okay, so just to back up, I know we want to end this, but we have 3.5 more hours of the movie to talk about. But no, after this,
Or are we matching runtime on this one?
we did the last time. No. Okay, so after the spider lady gets her, everyone's convinced she's dead because they throw the armor, like the mithril, at her, and they're like, "Oh, he's dead." And then we pan ahead forward, and then all of a sudden the Eye of Sauron's looking around, and they realize, because of a moth, I believe, they realize that they're still alive. And they're like, "We should have an army attack to distract him." And then they realize, like, they keep convincing that Frodo and Sam are dead. I mean, people are upset about Sam, but they're actually worried about Frodo because Sam was the gardener in the first movie, and now he's a war hero, which doesn't work. But we're here. And so at the end, we have everything happening at once, which is Aragorn get a haircut, and he looks fucking incredible. Like, it's tight on the sides, and he's like, I guess have to die for Frodo. And he goes for Frodo, and then he runs in slow motion, which is incredible. And the army is surrounded now, so they've lost. If I've learned anything from life, when you're surrounded, you're gonna lose. But it's incredible.
Yeah, made even worse by the fact that instead of just sitting there in a giant armored brick waiting for the enemy to come in, he leads them on a suicide charge for Frodo.
Well, yeah, but would you rather wait for certain death, or wouldn't you want to charge ahead like a true leader and king?
With the king.
Yeah.
Well, the orcs, the Easterlings aren't there. It's the orcish second stringers, so they probably they just smush.
Well, but again, it's intentionally supposed to be the dramatic end. We are surrounded. We're going to lose, but we're losing for a better cause. However, I will say this is the worst choice they made because they let Viggo Mortensen make up whatever accent he wants, and he's out there like, I would like to tell you, that we are going to beat the Hobbit. He is evil, but we can win. And this accent, because the whole
It kept
rest of the
fading in and out. I didn't know what was
But
happening.
it is not this day.
Today is not this day, it was yesterday, but not the day before. And you are like, where are you going, my man?
That speech was good, though. Finally, I bid you stand, men of the West.
We live in different worlds, Matt, because you're right. Those are the words, and those are important words, but he stands up like he's a Monty Python character doing a Welsh accent. And I'm like, there's a reason this won all the awards except for acting, and you were not mentioned. You lost the BAFTA, and the BAFTA is what losers can win. Meanwhile, in the background, Sam is like, don't worry, I swear to God, when we get there, the White Castle's still going to be open. Because Frodo is out of water. He
He doesn't remember what food tastes like. He's just
I can't remember the Shire.
He's like at the point where I can't carry this burden, but I can carry you, and he just power lifts Frodo up and marches up the mountain.
And here's the thing. I believe Elijah Wood can suck ass, and he is terrible. But Sam does not get enough credit. That actor
He does not.
saves the show because Elijah was like, oh God, it's so heavy, and this accent is not the one I should be doing. And he is like, they just make him drippy and sad, which I guess makes him pretty hot. But at the same time, Sam is just like, he never misses leg day, that Sam.
Oh man, that made me sore. He's like, he looks up and he's like almost there. I'm like, no, you're not, man. God, look at all that.
He's so optimistic.
What are you? Good Lord. He goes through it.
Meanwhile, Gollum is going off the top turnbuckle, and he's just like, ah!
Yes, he's like, he's got this to deal with.
Clever hobbits to climb so high.
Just man cannot leave it enough alone.
And then he gives him the fucking people's elbow, and he bites him on the neck, and he's going at it, man. It becomes Lost Boys for 7 seconds.
And then Sam just straight up stabs him.
Dude.
Sometimes you just gotta shiv somebody.
And again, like, what I like about
Samwise
this...
Gamgee gonna shank a bitch.
Yeah.
The thing I like most about this movie from a direction standpoint is this has as much drama as the battle happening with dragons. Like, and you could have been like, then some fucking hobbits were doing shit. And then cut back to the cool battle. But no, this is because at one point, after all this shit, and everyone is and Frodo is nearly dead, he goes, do you remember the Shire? And it's going to be spring soon, and there's the orchard is going to be blooming, and the flowers are. And he goes, I can't remember the Shire, and it's
Potatoes.
And it's like, and the old country buffet, and it's all you can eat, and there's mashed potatoes of 3 types, and there's 2 gravies, and the mac and cheese is replaced every 15 minutes.
What about the fireworks, Mr. Frodo?
You remember the time the stoner showed up and he had the fireworks, and Gandalf was like, you know what, kids, you can light it off, but I'm not responsible for fingers. Oh, Mr. Frodo, the fingers.
Hobbit fingers
And
with honey mustard.
And then meanwhile, Frodo wakes up like he's coming off a bad trip. He's like, there's no veil between us and the fire. You're just like, have you been listening to Dream Theater? Like, the fuck is happening? They're stealing dreams from my memory, Mr. Sam.
Oh, good, the fever's taken hold.
And then he goes, then I'll carry you. And he's like,
It's like the ultimate CrossFit workout.
you're the best around. Like, it's just,
Oh, is this where Sylvester Stallone comes in? And they have...
don't worry, Mr. Frodo. I can carry you.
I gotta do another song. You're a jacked one, Mr. Sam.
for this. Okay, so at the end, I don't know, man. There's a battle for 45 minutes. I
kept pausing the movie and being like, oh, there's only 2 hours left. And I love this movie, but because I was on a time crunch as I watched it today before recording, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get this done.
Yeah, the
That's why she
final...
was late to the other recording. So, and just as an aside, I'm literally watching it right now as we go. We're at the final battle, and there's still an hour left in the extended edition. Sorry, go ahead.
What was I going to say? I don't remember.
That's fine.
Well, they have even after the crowning of Aragorn, they go back to the Shire and they have their PTSD bros and the.
You shut your whore mouth. We haven't destroyed the ring yet.
That's actually what I was going to say.
Talk about Gollum going crackhead at the very end and saving the world.
Well, so after cradling his dying friend, he wants to complete the mission. The saddest line, we learn at the beginning, the hobbits eat 5 times or 6 times a day, and he goes, I can't recall the taste of real food. We've lost our humanity.
That's what depression does to you.
We're naked in the dark, as he says. Like this incredible, all-encompassing fear of loss.
He's lost all his hope.
The idea of doing something to save the world, to save humanity, whatever, at the loss to yourself. It's a perfect example of what's happening. And then when he looked at Malxu, when there were only 2 sets of footsteps, it was I who was carrying you. And so Sam.
Movie this is that after watching it, a handful of times or more, you know what's happening, you know what's coming, but you're still like, you're right there at the edge of your seat. It's like the first time you're watching it all over again. And I just love how you get sucked into this movie.
Well, and like Alex was saying, like, it's the body horror stuff. It's the visceral nation. Like, he shows the sharp teeth and he bites and there's blood, and it's also the fact that it's not just CGI, because CGI is nonsense, but it's the disappearing. It's like the light switch, like the boom, boom. Like, the idea that, I mean, they explained it earlier on, and we'll hit it here, but the ultimate power is that you get to do what you want, and these people are, I mean, they say the hobbits are thieves. He's a furry-footed burrower who can steal. He's a thief. But the invisibility of someone who wants to be ignored, again, if this is the war metaphor, it's the neutrality. You can't be seen, but these people don't want to be seen. Smeagol doesn't want to be seen. He's more comfortable being invisible, and then he disappears into the abyss. It's cool. That's why the visceral nature is more visceral. The scars are visceral. Everything is visceral. That's why it hurts.
The shot of Smeagol sinking into the magma and getting his hand on the ring one more time and lifting it up and then disappearing. And
the ring not wanting to die. Right?
I think it also speaks to the killing of any semblance of human being still in Smeagol. Like, him biting the finger like that just goes fully to animal side, like all part of your the ego death. You're not man anymore. Now you are just animal, and all you want is to get that power, which we think is a human thought, but I mean, I don't know.
The addiction parallels hit. Yeah, they really do. He becomes something else entirely.
But it's also like withdrawal that doesn't die. Like, it's power. It's cool. And we should say what's interesting too is obviously the trilogy was massive as it happened, but the burning and then the destroying and then the fact that they all think he's dead, there's time left in both versions, because that's not how the story ends. The story ends with humanity being resolved, right? Like, they have to be people again. And like, the end of this, from our perspective as a show that does comedy talking about movies-ish, I mean, I've been so funny. His rediscovery of being a human is hard. Like, that's what war is. You have to be willing to kill, which is the one thing you're not supposed to want to do. And his destruction of the ring is a destruction of thing of power. and then they ride back into a town that doesn't care about them.
Yeah, that was the fact that they roll back into the Shire and that one guy just glaring at them like, oh, look at these fucks back into town. Like, sorry, we just saved everybody's ass. You're welcome.
And they're wearing clothes. And I love it because my thought is, they look like that one person who summered in Europe and now wears scarves the whole time.
It's,
they're like,
it's pronounced La Croix.
Right, and then like, oh, you're wearing a scarf, aren't you? And you're a man.
It's an
the summer,
ascot,
right? Like, and like they have the elven clip around their cape, and I will say, I love this movie, but the best shot is when they're all just looking at that beer in the bar and they don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. Before the Hurt Locker, that was how you explain PTSD.
Yeah, you feel it when the four of them are just sitting there like, oh, so we're just back to regular life now. Like all of that whole, and that I mean that goes back to a topic I touched on earlier about how you have this war bond and how there will be other chapters of your life, and these particular people that you had this deep connection with may not be as included in these other chapters of your life, but no one can take this from them. No one will ever understand them. They are forever bonded with this thing, and no one can share that with them.
And
but
then,
it's also a very lonely feeling of coming back to reality, and you're like, oh.
And then you look across the bar and you see a rose cutting, and you're like, girl, I gotta make her my bride. Just because when I was at Notre Dame I was terrible doesn't mean I can't make her my bride. And then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna kiss the girl with the biggest dimples that life can allow. And then his real daughters show up, and that's very cute. And what I like about it too is that Sam just wants to fucking get back and like
be a dad.
He feels like a person. I get that. And then Merry and Pippin, I assume, open up a Dave & Buster's, like maybe a Discovery Zone, because they're just like, you know what?
A dispensary.
That's right. I'm gonna try to open a brewery before they film Boondock Saints 2, and then but it's something so charming about having Rosencrantz and Guildenstern with us the whole time.
Yes.
Like they're just like, you know what? We're oh goodness, because whenever they're on stage, I'm like, is this a Mighty Ducks movie? Like it's so good. And then meanwhile, Frodo's just like itching, and I feel bad because also. I get it, and Elijah Wood doesn't get enough credit because he's surrounded by beautiful people and he's a pretty boy. But the end of this, when he's writing The Lord of the Rings, it's really good, and you realize something is afoot. The ending, when it happens, is sad, but it makes sense. And I don't know how you pull off the stupidest... because if I'm explaining it, I'm just like, okay, bro, so at the end, he's writing it, and it turns out the whole time it's a fucking book, bro. And then, you know what? It turns out it's pretty good. It's The Lord of the Rings. Not the good one, but The Lord of the Rings.
Wait, so you went Kevin Nealon, then you went Long Island, and I don't know what's happening now. Matt, do you have any voices for us?
I thought that was Marky Mark.
Perfect.
Christ on a cracker. But at the end, he's like, and that is how I defeated Voldemort.
The end.
And then the end. And I left a few blanks for you, Mr. Sam.
Yeah, Sam gets the foreword. Here you go. Or the
Yeah,
I was too lazy to write the index. So if you could be so kind.
MLA format, please.
And then so Frodo, the sickly elderly Bilbo, Galadriel, Elrond, and some third elf get on the ship and go to Valinor.
Dude, the end of this is so sad. It's like, so Grandpa, tell me about the horses. It's about the rabbits. I listened to Mice. I was very sad at the end of Mice and Men. But that's what it is. It's
why couldn't Frodo tell Bilbo that he destroyed the ring?
Maybe he didn't want to.
Didn't want
Do
to
you think it was
upset
going to
him.
kill him?
Distress him, I suppose.
Don't want to upset him.
Maybe it would
'cause
have.
He's crazy for the
He's
ring.
200.
So he's even more fragile. Could have been a contender.
No, if you have not read the National Lampoon book, Board of the Rings, you need to. And then Dildo. rode to his, and then Dildo, whose quest was to find the ring, went with the dwarves when they sang their traditional song, "Hi ho, hi ho, it's off to work we go." Lord of the Rings is phenomenal. But when you said, and then Dildo shut up, my brain broke. I love you people. Anyway, at the end of all this, the idea is that they go to the, what is it, land?
The Undying Lands.
The Undying Lands.
Except, are they dying?
Well, Frodo probably eventually will, but the elves won't.
The idea, if I recall from reading my Tolkien, he's trying to explain how, in like a Genesis / Celtic way, there were gods among us and there were immortals among us, and now we can't find them. Well, after man proved it could defeat all evil, those immortal beings left to the place of eternity, like Mount Olympus, like heavens, and so now that the mortals, that humans can prove we can conquer evil because we have free will. They're going to the place where mythology lies. They're going to the place where stories are told, and therefore the Undying Lands. And so the elves, who have more or less controlled history by being boring, are going there, the great heroes of history, who in this realm are the weakest among us, who have risen up to a place of power.
And you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Well, but this is the thing about this realm, because if this was, say, the Greek realm, it would be Boromir who was going, right? And so in this realm, the meekest can rise, right? And that's what the Undying Land is supposed to be, a place where mythology stays forever. And that's when you start crying again, because you're like, he was so good, he gets to live forever. Meanwhile, Pippin sucks. Merry's a piece of shit. That's why he ruined it.
Yeah, in the book, I think Merry and Pippin, when they're dying, they're brought to Gondor and die alongside Aragorn, and Sam eventually gets to sail to the Undying Lands as well.
Sam is swimming after Mr. Frodo. Don't worry, this life preserver will save me, Mr. Frodo. Oh.
But Sam, you can't swim!
It's okay, it's for you.
Unfortunately, my wife didn't make it because cotton is absorbent. And she sank to the bottom. My wife is not going to speak to me tomorrow. Anyway, after an hour and a half, I think Mr. Frodo is going to start a rock band.
What was the one guy's song in Lost?
Oh, You All Everybody?
You all everybody.
Dominic Monaghan?
Yeah.
Not Penny's boat.
Not Penny's boat. Oh, that was emotional.
That was emotional.
That was emotional.
Denny's boat has got to go.
Denny's boat, it better well float. something.
We are really going to end on a high note here.
I'm ending on a high note.
I think I can do even higher than that.
Okay, then you can.
I think it's the highest anyone here could do.
You win. You win.
Oh no, now Keiko has to end it.
Wait, was that the deal?
Yeah, that's why I'm ending it on a high
Okay,
note.
I don't know how to do this. But,
And then do you want me to do it?
yeah, sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for visiting. Madison, why don't you give us our final thoughts?
Final thoughts here. Fantastic movie. I think that it is visually stunning. It is a beautiful story. And if you haven't already watched these, what are you doing? Turn this off and go watch them now.
Good. Matt?
Yeah, definitely watch the extended versions of all three.
I loved the battle scenes. Like I said, I don't think I'd seen it all the way through for 2 decades, but and I broke it up into like 2 or 3 parts watching it, but I found myself like wanting to get back to it. Visually so incredible. The battle scenes just amazing.
Keiko?
Super fun, super pretty. You gotta watch them all. don't do like I did and have this be the first one you watch after a few years.
No fast forwarding.
And fast forward through all the battles.
Better fast forward.
But yeah, it's really great. I mean, it was even great for me not having been refreshed on the other two movies, like just kind of having a general remembrance of them. So yeah, highly recommend.
I don't even know how to put this, but like, this movie is incredible because it bridges the gap between people who like, I'm going to watch a movie, and assholes who say, I'm going to watch a film. There's something so well done about this, which is good direction, practical effects, excellent sound work, excellent scripting, excellent progression, where if someone didn't know what good films were, they could enjoy it. But if they wanted to learn what made a good film into a film, you could teach them film studies and cinematography just with this movie. It's a masterpiece. And when we talked about it before, we had fun because this is a podcast where we have fun with things, but just practically, this is how you make movies. And I don't like a lot of modern movies, not because they're not done with vision, but because they're done without effort. This movie has practical effects because you had to figure out how to make a practical effect look as good as cinematography with CGI, and CGI is lazy in a lot of ways. This is a masterpiece. We put this here because we're screaming into home at the end of a long year doing long year things. That's why this, my friends, comes out on Thanksgiving, when everyone should be watching a film that everyone can enjoy. And next week, because I love people I love, we're going to watch a fun movie for fun. And so we're doing Rad, which is an incredible film done by people who like incredible films for fun. The next week, we're going to go screaming into a Christmassy season, where we're going to do some Rankin and Bass with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and The Year Without Santa Claus. Home Alone 3, because Daniel exists, and it was Roger Ebert's favorite movie. And Miracle on 34th Street with Mara Wilson, because why not? And then at the end of the day, we're going to go back to horror, where we're going to do Silent Night, Deadly Night, because Christmas deserves to spook 'em up. I love you guys. Thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for sharing us and reviewing us, because at this point, 10 years in, we love doing this because you love us doing this. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Myopia Movies is a podcast production of Dude Letter Podcasting and is produced by Nick Hoffman. It is edited by Nerd Trinette and Daniel Sudis and is hosted by Nick Hoffman, with production assistance by Matthew Quinn, Daniel Sudis, and Nerd Trinette. The theme song is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod from Incomptech.com. Licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 4 license, Creative Commons /licenses by /4.0. Thanks.